big round of applause for Christopher Brune-Horan. Christopher Brune-Horan. Come on, Christopher Brune-Horan, come on, let him hear it. That's it, that's the song.
I have a vivid childhood memory of going with the Cub Scouts to see my very first Broadway show. Beatle Mania. My heart is racing. The lights go down. There are 4 men on stage in identical suits with identical mop-top hair. Now I know, intellectually, they are not the Beatles. But as the title Beatlemania suggests, intellect has left the building for a much more primal feeling. They are performing, or simulating performing, the best Beatles songs, all in front of a huge screen, which is running clips of the actual Beatles, with their music blasting through the theater at rock concert level. I completely lost my mind. Bonkers, as Ed Sullivan would say. My navy blue Cub Scout uniform was sweat-soaked and unbuttoned. My mustard yellow kerchief was askew. I was experiencing Beatlemania. I was also surrounded by all of the other Cub Scouts in Port Jervis Cub Scout Pack 173, one of whom I had a mad secret crush on, and the others, well, the others I just lusted for. It was a confusing time, but for the length of one glorious Broadway show, I could fixate my longing on the 4 guys on stage, and it was appropriate to dance and scream with my fellows. I felt very small in my life, belittled, weak. Every moment, even the good ones, had this flip side to them, this melancholy. Because when you have a secret, no matter what, you're always thinking about it, just a little bit. Even in the theater, I felt it. I would never be one of the Beatles. I would never be one of the girls screaming their name. This was a straight world, and I was on the outside, looking in. I started feeling this way in elementary school. One minute I was happy, then the next minute I showed up for 5th grade and suddenly I was a sissy. It was like this memo went out and everybody got it but me. Over the summer, something had changed in me. I started picking up the phone and being mistaken for my mother. By people who should have known better, like my father. Everyone noticed this. It was brutal. Teachers even. I remember parent-teacher conference night that year, all of the comments were the same. Christopher spends way too much time talking to girls. He has no friends that are boys. This wasn't true either. I had my friend Richard who lived 2 doors down. The problem with Richard was that he would often show up at my door singing Don't Cry For Me, Argentina, with his arms outstretched like Evita. Richard doesn't count, my father said to me, exhaling his lucky strike. He wasn't being mean, he was worried about me. So was my mom. I was doing really wacky things. I had cut out a picture of John Stamos from Tiger Beat, and I brought it to my mother's hairdresser and asked them to cut my hair like that. They didn't know what to do with me, so they signed me up for Pop Warner football. They thought they would just bang it out of me. The problem was that I waved my hands when I ran. Everyone noticed this, including coaches. I would practice in private by carrying bricks, but the minute I put the bricks down, it would come back. I would so much rather just blow dry my friend Agnes's hair upside down with a round brush, waiting for that magical moment when she would just throw it all back and we would go to the roller rink. I was horribly self-conscious. Everything that I was drawn to naturally that I identified as myself was labeled as gay, and gay was this shameful thing. By the time high school graduation rolled around, I literally ran to New York City. I was desperate to be myself. I had no real plan. I wasn't in college. I told my parents I was in this acting school, but I rarely went. I had no self-esteem. I had internalized everything that anybody had ever told me about myself. I was half in the closet, half out. I drank too much, I isolated. The New York City that I dreamt of was right there at my door, and yet I didn't like myself. And then this miraculous thing happened. The Beatles came back into my life in this fantastic way. My brother gave me this biography about them called Shout, and I devoured this book, cover to cover. I read everything about them. I listened to every single song, most of them for the very first time. Dear Prudence made me cry. And then I read something. I read that the Beatles' manager, Brian Epstein, was gay. This guy told them to cut their hair like that. He told them to bow at the end of songs. He told them to stop smoking. I mean, basically, he queer-eyed for the straight guy then before anybody knew what that was. This was huge to me. It really made an impact on me. This was somebody that I admired. And I gotta tell you something, it felt like power, and that felt delicious. And then I read that Brian Epstein died of a drug overdose when he was 32 years old, and that resonated too. And I thought to myself, that is not the life that I want for myself. It took me time, years really, but I eventually left New York, I moved to California, I got it together. I came out to everyone, past, present, future. When Prop 8 lifted, I married my husband in front of 150 people. My parents, front and center, crying, tears of joy. Next to them, my friend Richard, the one that didn't count. Today, my husband and I, we have 2 foster sons, and I sing to them all the time, often Beatles songs. I don't care how loud, and I don't care who hears me. I know who I am, and now everybody else is caught up.